I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
So quiet now. Sunday night, WESU Middletown, WESUFM.org if you want to check us out online. If you're in the car or at a regular old school radio, go to 88.1 on your FM dial. This is Pint Comics, Sir John, Johnny Ganache. That was the Broadway Radio Hour with our good friend Billy Johnstone. Billy always bringing it every other week here on WESU. John, how's it going tonight?
It's fantastic.
Yeah. So let's get right to it. Special guest on the phone.
That is true. We do have a special guest tonight.
Howdy there.
And here
Hello,
he is.
there he is.
Our special guest tonight is Ezra Croft. He's a writer of a fine, fine book of all things Bill Murray, specifically Bill Murray artwork.
Yeah.
Ezra, what's the name of this book again? It's a long title.
This is The Art of Being Bill, The Many Faces of Awesome, and it's a fan tribute artwork of from all over the entire planet, dedicated to the man, the myth, the legend, Bill Murray.
That's a good way to put it with Bill Murray.
Yeah, definitely.
Because he definitely, we actually, Ezra, on our last episode of our podcast, because we have a weekly podcast, we reviewed your book towards the end of the show, and we were discussing Bill Murray, and I kind of said that Bill Murray has kind of transcended being a comedian and an actor. He's kind of his own thing now, you know? I mean, obviously, you know, because you wrote a book and all these people put up this incredible artwork, but it's like he's like on a different level from everybody else, and not necessarily like he's above everybody else. He's just not on the same stratosphere as everybody else.
Yeah, he exists completely on a different plane but it's a plane of awesomeness. I mean, he's part of so many just like urban myths and legends and just movies that like everybody knows, and you know, that's kind of a unique place in the human race. I think he's a step above.
He certainly is for me. I have my own personal Bill Murray specifics that I like. I mean, specific movies, specific characters that he plays. You get into almost all of the top 10, I would say, out of my Bill Murray enjoyment in the films. You specifically go after the movies as opposed to anything he's done on television. I know that you really enjoy the Wes Anderson run that he's had recently, which is pretty much where I stand, too, with Bill Murray. I think Steve Zissou is one of the best characters he's ever portrayed.
Oh, yeah, definitely. No, yeah, the Wes Anderson movies have, there's a stylistic kind of momentum to them that not many movies have. It's like Kubrick had it. And, you know, and there's a way that the movies present themselves, and Bill is this like linchpin in them, and yeah, they really stand out.
They definitely do. And what's nice about the book is it's got a lot of pieces of artwork of all types. I mean, not just paintings, not just drawings, but in a couple of cases, cakes.
Yes, absolutely, cakes.
So these galleries,
like cakes.
Yeah, these galleries that you've put together, these art exhibits. How did they come about?
Oh, it's born out of pure madness. When I first started to put this art show together, I kind of wanted to buck the system with like a normal art show, like, you know, with a gallery featuring one artist for a month. And I was like, we need to put some real energy behind this. So I just and this was when Facebook was like kind of like in its prime before like it got really political. But I would put ads out, and I was just like, hey, looking for Bill Murray art, and then people would send something to me, and I'd be like, hey, invite all your artist friends if they want to submit. And then it just spread like wildfire all over the internet. And people from like coast to coast would send me stuff, and then somehow it would get pinged to somebody in Europe. And I even had a few people from like Asia and Ukraine be in our shows. And then I would put ads on Craigslist. And Craigslist, it sounds crazy. And when people read the ads, they think it's a scam of some sort. And then I always reply back with, like, Google me, it's not a scam. And then the people would mail stuff to my house, and we would, the FedEx guy hated me at one point because we were the last stop on his route, and we'd have like 20 boxes. But yeah, and then we'd go to this really cool, huge place in San Francisco the day before, and we'd set up 200 or 300 paintings. I would try to book bands and DJs that I really liked, and people would like dress up as their favorite Bill Murray characters, and it was basically like a Bill Murray carnival.
I can't even fathom that. Everybody as Bill Murray.
Yeah. The book is amazing to see the interpretations of not only of the mediums they use, but you kind of forget the characters. Like one of them that I hadn't seen in a long time, and I've always liked it, is Quick Change.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, yeah.
And you see that, and you're like, wow, man, I got to check that out again. It's a great book because it refreshes you, but it also remembers the stylistic kind of iconography he has, like dressed like the clown in that one, you know, and then, you know, you think of him in the army fatigues and stripes and what these people play with that. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, and I was just in New York a little while ago where I met John there at Comic-Con, and the day before I was actually driving around in Queens and got lost, and there was like wrong road signs, and it was just like QuickTime was like a real movie. So, you know, it's like kind of art portraying reality, portraying art.
It's funny too with that particular movie. A lot of people don't know about it. It's probably been a late night television staple for since the early 90s.
Yeah, because I'm gonna go on a limb and say it wasn't a hit in any way, shape, or form. Right? It was. I think that was like very right after Ghostbusters 2, maybe. Right around that time. Yeah.
And, Randy Quaid and Gina Davis
and
John Ratzenberger was in it. Yeah.
It's just I remember seeing it the first time on television. It was on one of the other networks, and it was during the day, and I'm like, what? When did this come out? I've never even heard of this movie. But that's how I discovered a lot of these films too. I was surprised to see that something like The Man Who Knew Too Little wasn't in there though. One of those oddball Murray movies that you don't think about because it just wasn't a big hit.
Yeah, no, there was a few movies where he that kind of came out before he really hit his stride, and he was in a lot of really serious roles, like The Razor's Edge.
Yeah.
Was he was a fun, charming character, but it was kind of a serious, philosophical movie, and I think people don't really know him for that. But I mean, it's the guy, what's his name, who plays Jean-Luc Picard. I mean, he did a lot of Shakespearean stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, Patrick Stewart. Everybody knows him from Star Trek,
Right.
but he's done a million things before that. And Murray, he also stands there.
It's a good selection of all the movies that he's done, though, especially with all the different art interpretations scattered about. It's a fun little book. I mean, I was really impressed with it. It was a great read on the ride back from
thank you.
New York Comic Con, as it were.
Hey, there's an alternate universe out there where because I mean the rumor was always, and I think I've read this more than once, that Tim Burton wanted Bill Murray to play Batman in the '89 Batman, and I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if it stopped.
And I think he wanted Eddie Murphy to play Robin.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I think that's real, but then it fell through.
And I don't know. I mean, I guess you just don't see Bill Murray doing that, but it's because we didn't see him. I mean, you remember, John, and I mean maybe you remember, Ezra, that when they announced it was going to be Michael Keaton, nobody could see that.
It was.
Yeah, I mean, and Bill Murray over George Clooney is more believable. I mean, if you think about an eccentric billionaire.
Oh yeah, that is true. That is true.
Definitely.
What was the other one now? You were just mentioning The Man Who Knew Too Little.
Mm-hmm.
That was like mid-'90s probably, and I kind of forgot about that.
It was early.
What was the one with the elephant?
The elephant.
He did a movie.
Wait,
yeah, he did a movie where he had to travel across larger than life. That was a Bill Murray movie.
You're drawing a blank on me here.
Yeah, look it up. It's a Bill Murray movie where I think Janine Garofalo might have been in that. And Matthew McConaughey, I think, was in that too. That was a weird one.
Really?
Yeah. I don't remember. Was that covered in any of the art in the book, Ezra?
I think that one got missed. But I'm looking. I actually had to look that up as you said it, and it just came back to me.
Yeah, that was probably like the mid-'90s. But yeah,
I've got no recollection of that.
Yeah,
at all.
not a good one. I think it was right before maybe he made Rushmore. Because Rushmore, that period, like you said, with Wes Anderson,
that was almost like a renaissance of
is kind of where it kind of turned around for him.
Yeah, I mean,
not necessarily that he was having a bad career, but he suddenly became this thing, and then he had Lost in Translation a few years later, and that kind of solidified it. And then he kept doing all these Wes Anderson. Now I've not seen all the Wes Anderson movies. Is he in all of them, or is he just in some of them?
I think he's. Well, Ezra, you probably know better than me, but
he's not in all of them, but he is in most of them.
Yeah. In Moonrise Kingdom, he's not one of the major characters, but he is in it.
So he's always got a place.
And like, what was that last one? The hotel.
The Grand Budapest Hotel.
Yeah, he's got a small role in that too. So.
Yeah, and all of his little small bit roles are just excellent. I mean, if you think about Zombieland, like that's such a small role in that movie, but it's a huge small role.
Yeah, it's a pretty pivotal role in that movie. Bill
effing Murray. And let's not forget, do you have any regrets? Well, I guess Garfield. So Ezra, what was it like for you in particular as pre-author, putting this book together and getting all these people from all over the country and world to send you these various Bill Murray pieces of art? What was your first real fan experience as like, were you a kid? Did you love Ghostbusters? What was it that got you into Bill Murray?
Easily, it was Ghostbusters. My dad got a VCR back, like I think it was the first year Ghostbusters came out, and as like a little 5-year-old, you're not really aware when movies come out and everything. But he had a bootleg copy of Ghostbusters, and I think it had just came out in like the movie rental stores. And me and my sisters watched it on Christmas morning, and we had seen commercials for it on TV. And there's that part where, he gets hit by Slimer in the hotel. And that's like the one part every kid that's seen that movie remembers. And, the part where the ghost screams at him in the basement of the library. And it's just so many parts about that movie just stick into my mind. And also because I think that they use Muppets in that movie instead of CGI. And I think when there's like an actual tangible kind of like effect, I mean, that really kind of adds to it. And then Bill Murray made it. He's like laying on the ground. He's like, I got slimed. Yeah.
It's right here, Ray.
Staring at me, Ray.
The flowers are still standing.
This is going to be an episode of Movie Buff.
Yeah. So I watch a lot of movies.
Does that remain to you even through your adulthood? Is that a favorite Murray, or is there one in particular that has trumped everything else?
I like that one, and I like Rushmore and St. Vincent quite a bit.
Oh, St. Vincent.
St. Vincent was one that John, a couple of years ago, was telling me constantly that I've got to check out, and it wasn't that I wasn't interested. It was just one of those things. Yeah, he keeps saying it. I'll check it out. And then me and my wife watched it one night, and I loved it.
It's fantastic.
It was so, and it wasn't just Murray. It was Naomi Watts. It was what's her name? Melissa McCarthy was great in it. The kid who ended up being like the main kid in the It remake. Yeah. It just, the whole cast was great.
Oh, it's a great story too. And then in your book, you mentioned some of the details that Murray went into for the character he played of Vincent, and I didn't know that. I didn't know he was actually trying to get that accent for where was he? Sheepshead Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a very particular accent. Yeah, I think he talked to a lot of people and kind of he really dives into his characters.
Yeah, and for that character too, it's if the listeners haven't seen this movie, it's a really good, poignant, character-driven story, and I really enjoy it. It's very, very funny, but it's also heart-wrenching.
Oh, it'll kick you. Out of nowhere, it'll kick you down the stairs too. Yeah. I wasn't expecting it to, there was a couple of moments of, sentimentality and kind of sadness to it that I wasn't expecting from this movie, and boom.
Well, right? and the ending just really gets you too.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
Fantastic movie, yeah. So, yeah, John definitely recommended that one. So anything in the milieu that you're not fond of? Is there any Murray that you're like, that's not my Murray?
Oh gosh, the Razor's Edge was a little tough to watch because you go into it expecting one thing, but he kind of started out with like having some serious acting chops, and then I think he just figured out that comedy was his thing, and then there was a few things like earlier on, like what's it called, Loose Shoes. I couldn't tell you a single thing about Loose Shoes.
See, that's one I'm not even familiar with.
I don't even know that one.
Was that pre or post Meatballs?
That was pre-Meatballs.
Pre-Meatballs, okay.
Yeah. And also, Mad Dog and Glory was a really interesting movie, too. Him and Robert De Niro and Uma Thurman were in that, and he was a mob boss who beat up Robert De Niro and was mean to Uma Thurman a lot. And he played a mean, bad guy, and it was really kind of an interesting take on Bill Murray, but he rocked the role. But it was kind of a strange movie, and I don't know, because Robert De Niro was more of the main character and Bill Murray was the bad guy, so it kind of just flipped a lot of things on its head there.
that was one I couldn't get behind. I had a lot of friends that really liked it, and I watched it a couple times, and it's just not. It's not my thing. It's not my movie. It's not because of Bill. It's not because of anybody else. It's just that the movie itself wasn't something. It
was more of a drama.
Yeah.
Well, and then right afterwards, he was in Ed Wood, and he played a complete weirdo in that movie, and he was a lunatic in that movie, and that was great.
I forgot he was in Ed Wood.
When I saw that in the theater, he had one line, and I forget which one it was. I think it's during the wedding. Yeah, it's the wedding when they're no, not the wedding. When they're getting baptized.
Yeah.
And his character, he's playing a real person.
Right.
So he's being baptized, and he says something that just had me laughing so loudly in the theater. I think people were looking at me.
That's a great movie. Maybe
I love
maybe
that
that's
movie.
the Tim Burton connection. Maybe Tim Burton decided he couldn't have him as Batman, so he'd have him as whoever he played in Ed Wood.
Yeah, it's Bunny Breckenridge.
Yes.
Yes, yeah.
That's a fun one, though.
Oh, I love that movie.
Yeah. But again, I mean, you get him into his current spate of films that seem to be really hitting the right spot after he had. The Razor's Edge seemed to really push people in the wrong direction. Like, oh, Bill Murray, he's a comedic actor. What's he doing this serious stuff for? But
Well, that happens when anybody comedic tries that.
And this is pre-internet too. So just imagine if the internet was up at the time when he tried to do.
Well,
that.
especially thinking of pre-internet, when at least like when Jim Carrey made, let's say like Eternal Sunshine, you knew it was coming.
Yeah.
When they released the trailer for the Razor's Edge, people are like, "What the hell is going on?" That's Bill Murray.
Yeah. I kind of missed the demographic there, but it's just like in a lot of his newer things too. I mean, his characters, like, they have a really good vibe of like a guy who's just kind of like, he's had it up to here, he's had it like, really rough, but he's going to kind of like somehow find a way to smile through it, even if he doesn't like it. He's going to have some scotch when he gets home and complain about it. But and that's one thing I liked about St. Vincent so much. He was kind of the patron saint of lost causes. But and it was just like, he was like that kind of vibe that he gives off. It's like, everybody feels like that once in a while.
Yeah, I love that movie.
So now you've written a book about the guy. You've collected more art than probably anybody's ever had based on this guy. Have you ever had the chance to meet him?
You know what? I've met him one time on my 40th birthday. I was living in California here. And, I live in North Carolina now, but I was in California, and he was performing at a place in Napa doing his New Worlds tour. And I saw on Instagram that he was doing a sound check at like 11 a.m., and I lived right down the street, so I drove there. And I went to Costco the day before, and I had a huge sign printed out that said, "Today is my birthday, and all I want is an autograph from Bill Murray." And I sat there right outside of like the performer entrance, and then he comes walking out. And I talked with him for about a minute and a half and got an autograph and told him that I'm doing art shows about him. And he was just like, oh, that's great. Well, keep up the good work. And he just kind of, and then a bunch of people with like Meatballs, like records and things like that started like running at him. And he's like, just jumped in the car and drove away.
So look at that. Your subtle approach of only getting something made at Kinko's or Costco worked. You didn't throw, like the VHS of Ghostbusters at him and made him get into his car and run away.
Yeah. No, I just wanted just an autograph, and I have a tattoo of Bill Murray on my left shoulder too. And
this says a lot.
I didn't want to like take my shirt off and show it to him because it'd be kind of strange if somebody walked up to you and was like, "Hey, John, look at this," and then they showed you their arm and there's your face on their arm.
and what is the exact tattoo? What pose do we have?
It's the one from the Esquire magazine with the Chive uses it a lot too, where he has the flowers in his beard.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I've kind of that's in my mind like one of the more like iconic like photos of him, and I just like I don't know a lot of his movies and just kind of the mythology of Bill just reminds me of like the happy times of growing up, and watching fun movies and laughing when you're little, So I was like, I'm going to enshrine that. I also have a tattoo of pizza and the Death Star shooting the pizza while in space. It's my arm is just a ridiculous mishmash of tattoos.
Can we get back to that for 1/2 second? So is it a full pizza pie?
Oh no, it's just a slice of pepperoni.
Okay. And the Death Star at fully operational is destroying
Yes, exactly.
the slice of pepperoni.
Yes, I'll email you a picture later.
I absolutely want to see this. We'll share it on our website and the whole 9 yards.
Should have all our guests send in all their tattoos.
Yeah, really.
We'd have quite the collection.
I was gonna say if it might be the most bizarre. I don't know if anybody's gonna be Ezra for the for the Death Star versus pizza tattoo.
Yeah. Well, and then the nice part of it too is Bill Murray is hovering over it, kind of like almost like the Santa Maria, just like watching over everything in the universe. Nice.
So you met the man, you wrote a book. Now you have a tattoo? Is there anything planned past the book in terms of a movie or a documentary or anything like that?
There's a lot of really good stuff out there, and I'm trying not to mimic anything else that's been done. There's a good movie called The Bill Murray Stories that came out by a guy named Tommy Avalone, and it's like kind of reenactments of stories of people meeting Bill Murray. And there was another movie called The Bill Murray Experience, which a lady named Sadie Katz in Los Angeles did, where she's trying to basically follow the mythology of Bill Murray and interview people that have met him and that have worked with him. And I kind of want to do something that's not really following Bill Murray, but just really more like an experience that's interactive for people to deal with. Because part of why I did the book too, and why me and my wife are doing art shows, we want to give props to artists out there. Artists are some of the hardest working people out there, and being creative and then using Bill Murray as a muse is sometimes tricky for people, especially when they're just discovering his movies. But we want to I'm thinking about doing a big movie night. I'd like to rent out the Egyptian Theater in Los Angeles and do a rescreening of The Life Aquatic and have a huge Bill Murray party in the lobby right before. I don't know. I'm brainstorming on a lot of fun things, but whatever it is, it should be interactive. I'd like to do another big Bill Murray art show in Brooklyn because I haven't done one there, and I just now moved to the East Coast this year, and I think that could go over really well. And there's a lot of Bill Murray fans in New York and Massachusetts and all over that whole area.
Should do it in Sheepshead Bay.
Yeah. Oh, that'd be great. Not during the winter.
It's not that bad. Well, we'll see. In all of this Murray-ism or Murray in-depth discovery, I guess you want Murray-centric stuff. Really, I mean, have you gone further into the family? I mean, we all know. Well, those of us that are big movie buffs, we all know Brian Doyle Murray.
Yeah.
Joel.
Yeah.
Who was the one that was in Moving Violations? John?
I forget.
I think it's John.
Yeah. Well, I love Joel. I'm a huge fan of Joel Murray. He's been in some of my favorite movies. He was in Mad Men for a bunch of seasons. I mean, Joel Murray and Brian Doyle Murray are up there, right next to Bill. I mean, they're awesome actors. And you remember the show Get a Life? Yeah, that was with Chris Elliott. And he was always so mean to Chris Elliott. I love that show. Yeah, the Murrays are they're America's first family. I'm next to the Kennedys, it's the Murrays.
Well, there's isn't it 9 brothers?
It's a big family.
Yeah.
And their sisters too. But I mean, it's 9 brothers, and they all creepily, in some way, shape, or form, look alike. They're not exactly. The guy that was in Moving Violations looks. In Moving Violations, just like a young Bill Murray.
He sounds just like him.
And he sounds just like him, too.
Yeah, man. And I know Bill's son, Homer, actually owns a really awesome gastropub in Red Hook in Brooklyn. And I've been in there a few times, and it's a world-class place. And he looks nothing like Bill Murray.
Oh, really? So it just spreads out amongst the brothers, but not past that.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, I'm not even sure if that would be a good thing or a bad thing necessarily. Bill's a very specific look.
Yeah.
It's a lateral move.
Yeah. Definitely that.
So you're talking about the art show. Do we have any dates going through the rest of this year, or are you kind of in stasis right now with it?
Yeah, I'm kind of in stasis. It's basically finding a good place to accommodate a few hundred people and some fun sounds. I always like to kind of have dancing and a good bar. Bill Murray always enjoyed a cigarette and a scotch and fun music. There's a really great picture of him dancing with Gilda Radner at Studio 54. And I think when you go to an art show, it shouldn't just be white walls and soft jazz piping through the the speakers in the ceiling. It should be something fun and interactive. So right. I'm venue hunting right now, and New York is pricey, I've had a friend that wants me to do something in Boston, and I've never been to Boston, so I might come up there and check that out.
You know, it's right in between both of those. Basically, is Connecticut. So if you ever, that's where we are. You know, we got some wonderful art fans up here. So if you're looking, keep Connecticut in the thought process.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great artists and Bill Murray fans, and I think as soon as I find a place and we can nail down a date, I want to definitely do something for the East Coast, because I've done about 4 of them maybe 5 on the West Coast, like through San Francisco and Los Angeles, and now moving out here, I think we got to give the East Coast a taste.
Of the artists that are in the book itself, or even that weren't in the book but were at the galleries, was any of the artwork from a first time artist?
Absolutely. Yeah. There was a good at least 20%.
Oh wow.
A lot of people just kind of came out of the woodwork. They're like, I'm going to start painting now. And there was a few people that hadn't ever, that might have painted before, but have never submitted to anything or been in an art show. They just kind of found their muse and ran with it. And that's always really cool to see, because there's a lot of kind of raw passion and interest, and, just a renewed kind of love for Bill Murray right there.
Oh, I'm picturing Richard Dreyfuss making the Devil's Canyon out of mashed potatoes. They don't know why they're painting Bill Murray, but they are. Or this lady or guy doesn't know why they're making a cake shaped like Bill Murray, but they are, and they're being called to.
It's a call from a higher power.
It's a call from the higher power. Did you? Now you must. I'm assuming you must have a ton of stuff. Hopefully not a ton of cakes that you couldn't use at all. Do you have enough for a sequel book, or do you actually have a lot of stuff left over?
We had over 400 and change for submissions, and it was a lot. And I'm going to say 99.9% of it was dynamite stuff. And then we had to make a lot of hard calls on it. We wanted to get the best of the best, and the Quarto group, Race Point, they kind of helped me with the design process of figuring out what was going to go in the book, and we all kind of had an election sequence to figure out what we wanted to have. And so we had to cut a lot of really awesome artists, and but then what ended up in the book, I think, was the best visually that we could come up with, and I'm happy with the result. And if this book could have been twice as thick, that would have been perfect, but it's publishing. Yeah.
What would you say was the highest of all the submissions you got of anything, whether it be a painting or a cake or a drawing? Was there one movie version or one movie in particular that was represented the most that you got out of everything?
Easily The Life Aquatic. It was an ocean of Steve Zissous.
Oh, that's crazy. I would have thought Ghostbusters or something.
Yeah. Well, and I would also. Well, we had a lot of Ghostbusters, but I think we had a few more Steve Zissous, and the average age of the artist was a little bit younger. I'm now 40, and so I'm just kind of I think a lot of people that were a little my age or maybe a little older kind of remember some of his earlier movies and base their inspiration off that. But since the 80s through the 90s, everybody recognizes him from the stuff that he was in with Wes Anderson. So, but it's all great.
and The Life Aquatic, it just the character of Steve Zissou and the costuming and everything that's in the movie really. It tends to be something to draw inspiration from. It's pretty easy.
Yeah, it's got a very unique look.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, it even has a color scheme of sorts. It's that blue and that
Powder
yellow.
blue, yeah.
Yeah, and that's the magic of Wes Anderson movies. There's a real aesthetic to it, and I think it's almost like a play, but it's really striking. And Bill Murray, he's a striking guy, and I think he's kind of this singularity in the movie, and then just kind of just goes with it. And yeah.
Definitely.
It's one of the few Wes Anderson ones I saw. I saw Rushmore. I saw that, and maybe one other. Not the family. What's the family one?
Royal Tenenbaums.
Royal Tenenbaums. I did not see that, but I really, really like Steve Zissou a lot. And the casting in that movie is perfect.
It is.
And just the whole idea that he's out for revenge against the jaguar shark. It's just a great movie.
It's a very surreal film, and it's one of the things I really enjoyed about it. It's just over the top, and as a kid, Jacques Cousteau. Shouldn't say the name along with the Steve Zissou product. That's anathema. But Cousteau's TV presentations were always the thing to watch. You were always fascinated by that stuff. Even me as a kid.
Yeah, I used to watch that stuff. Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, and a little bit of the inspiration from Steve Zissou. I don't know if you remember Lloyd Bridges, the senior member of the Bridges family. He used to have a nautical show, and it was always green screened, where he'd be like on a table, and you could tell it was like, it was like 60s fake. It was so horrible, but it was trying to be like a real documentary show, and they took a little bit of the corniness from that and put it in there too,
which is great.
All right, Ezra, we got to go to break real quick. Before we go to break, do you want to give everybody every little bit of information where to find you, so that when we're on break they can start checking it out and buying this book and getting them set up for the holiday season?
Absolutely. You can go on Amazon and just search for The Art of Being Bill. It's the first book that pops up. There's a bunch of other Bill Murray books, but this one is the best one. It supports a ton of artists, and it's a good deal. It's like $16 right now. But yeah, Amazon, and you can get it at any Barnes and Noble in America.
All
right.
Easily obtainable.
Easily obtainable. All right, Pint of Comics, we will be back in about 2 minutes and 2 seconds.
Dynamite.
What kind of help does the IRS have for identity theft victims?
If you suspect you're a victim of tax-related identity theft, go to irs.gov/identity theft to learn how to prevent potential refund fraud and protect your tax account. At the IRS, combating tax-related identity theft is a top priority, and we are committed to prevention, detection, and assisting victims. And we're working with law enforcement to catch the criminals. For more info, go to irs.gov/identity theft to learn what the IRS is doing to help protect you.
The price of a pre-owned luxury yacht, $17.9 million.
The price of a round-trip flight from Hartford to Reykjavik, Iceland, $3,477.
Buying a goat for your new goat farm, $400.
A fresh new WESU t-shirt design supporting our fall pledge drive, $35.
The satisfaction of supporting free-form community radio, priceless.
WESU relies on listener support. Donate online at wesufm.org.
Hi, this is Nicolas Cage. When you're a teenager, there are a lot of things going on that can produce stress and anxiety. The pressures of school, dating, and the future in general can seem overwhelming sometimes. But there are healthy ways to deal with stress, ways to reduce it and channel your energy in positive directions. And you don't have to do it alone. The Will Rogers Institute has a free booklet with some really helpful information.
For your free copy, visit wrinstitute.org and find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Your mom had an accident. I'll take you to her. Uh-oh.
Look, Wild Bill.
Who was that?
Some stranger. He said Donnie's mom was hurt. I didn't know if I should go with him.
Well, just don't do what a stranger says. Check it out with an adult you know. Remember, a stranger
can mean danger. Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
WESU Middletown. Don't let your kids go off with strangers. This is Pint of Comics. Take your advice from the G.I. Joe helicopter pilot. I think it was called the Dragonfly.
Hopefully you heard it.
Yeah, I know. I don't know why that came out so quiet on tonight's. I don't know. I can never figure this board out, so who cares?
Sometimes it plays right, sometimes it doesn't.
We're back with Ezra Croft. Ezra is an author and expert on all things Bill Murray and Death Star Pizza related. Now, Ezra, I wanted to ask you, because you obviously compiled you've spent a lot of time learning a lot of things about Bill Murray. Now, your book is an art book, and it does get into little vignettes about the movies and stuff like that. But I wanted to ask you, because this is one of the things, you kind of touched on it real quick before, the mythology of Murray. Can you tell us, and for the listeners out there, a couple of the stories that are supposedly true, these Bigfoot-like stories? Like, there was one that I had heard one time where a kid was sitting in a fast food restaurant, and Bill Murray ate some of his French fries, and he looked up, and Bill Murray's just staring at him and said, "No one's going to ever believe you," and kind of walked away, and stuff like that. Like what are some of the really good ones that you've heard?
Well, one that I've heard several confirmations that's true, but he was on the roof of a building, I think after a golf tournament, and some people had walked up to the roof to smoke and saw Bill Murray and started taking pictures of him with their cell phones. And then he has to see their phones, and then threw all three of their phones off of the roof.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, he's crashed a few weddings where people have just been having a normal, great, fun, perfect day, and then Bill Murray just marches in and just hangs out with them and sings songs, and like everybody's like, Bill Murray is at this wedding. I can't even believe it's real. And yeah, he showed up to I think the opening of his son's bar and poured tequila shots, and no matter what anybody ordered, he just poured tequila. They're like, oh yeah, gin and tonic, and he's like, sure, it just poured him tequila. Yeah, he's kind of he's a mythological character. He appears and disappears. And he's had sightings all over the world. I mean, people will be in Australia and see him like at a restaurant, or they'll be in Pittsburgh and he'll be like ordering food. You kind of don't know where he's going to be. And that movie, the Bill Murray stories, actually touches a lot on those. And I have yet to dig really deep into that movie. It's pretty amazing.
My favorite one is him driving the golf cart in Stockholm, down the streets of Stockholm.
Yes,
that was a really good one. And I believe they arrested him for that too, if I remember correctly. It was in the newspapers years ago when he did it.
Swedes.
Yeah, it was late at night, I think, and it's Stockholm. Who's driving around in Stockholm late at night? Nobody.
And who arrests Bill Murray?
I know exactly. Yeah. Just the Swedes.
Yeah, you figure out who it is and you just let him go. But the Swedes don't know Bill Murray.
It's probably one of my relatives. Who knows?
The Swedes are Chevy Chase people. So. They don't like Bill Murray.
Oh man,
that's another story from back in the Saturday Night Live days when Chevy Chase left after the first season. Bill Murray replaced him. Bill Murray wasn't there from season 1, and apparently Chevy Chase came back late in that season to host, and I guess he was just a jerk to everybody. And Bill Murray punched him in the face, or vice. One of them punched the other one in the face.
Yes.
That's an old story too. Yeah, Bill Murray punched him, right?
Yeah, and I believe there was another story where Martin Mull, who was on SCTV, and so he was on Saturday Night Live for a few minutes. I think Bill Murray tried choking him out.
Really?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What did Martin Mull do?
And it was apparently unprofessional in some way or another. But you don't cross Murray. You gotta roll with him.
I guess Bill Murray was the cast's only solace from Royal Tenenbaums against Gene Hackman.
Oh, really?
Because Gene Hackman, I guess, like terrorized everybody, and Bill Murray was the only one that he wouldn't pull it with. And I guess Gene Hackman was particularly verbally abusive to the director, Wes Anderson.
Oh,
at one point he told him to dress like a man, act like a man. This whole thing, right? And I guess Bill Murray like had words with him, and that was the last movie Gene Hackman ever made. By the way, it really was. So maybe maybe there is truth to the magic of Murray.
Absolutely, and he's a huge guy too. When I met him, I mean, like I'm 6'3". He was at least an inch taller than me. He's a tall guy.
See, I didn't picture that. He's a big guy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's an imposing character and always well dressed. And just like when I saw him too, I wanted to say more things, but the words just wouldn't come out of my mouth. It was all just like I was talking in cursive. It was hard.
It's not easy to talk to the person you got a tattoo of, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you ever, being such a fan of Mr. Murray, have you ever watched The Sweet Spot?
No.
The Sweet Spot.
Sweet Spot was a very brief series of shows he did on Comedy Central.
Oh, the golfing
the
show.
Golf show, yeah.
With his brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I watched them all, and I understand why it didn't return for more than, I think it was 4 or 5 episodes. I think I was the only one that watched it. I felt like it anyway.
I remember the promos for that. Yeah.
It was definitely a golf-centric show with some humor. It's basically them bantering back and forth. They're essentially playing themselves, but there are actors that are playing roles in it as well. So it's a little strange, but it's definitely something to find if you can find it. It's different. It's Murray different. I'll say that.
It's Murray different. Well, and that's the thing. He only needs to be Bill Murray in any role. I mean, it's just like Nicolas Cage. He doesn't have to act like anybody else. He's always just, he's himself.
That is true. That is very true.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of any movie where Murray really isn't that kind of dry. Kind of,
like you said, Mad Dog and Glory. He's way beyond his normal Ken. But yeah, he's got kind of a thing that he does regardless of what movie it is. So it's different when he does step way beyond that role.
Yeah. Yeah, he kind of does, like you said, bring his real life persona into every role to an extent.
And I seem to recall now in your book you mentioned this too. There was one movie where he ad-libbed pretty much every line he did. I can't remember what movie that is, but maybe you might.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. And I forget if it wasn't What About Bob? It was
Richard Dreyfuss hates him. I've read that.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think in real life, yeah, they did not get along. But apparently, he was the only person on the set that made him laugh too. So it worked out. No, in the Lost in Translation, there was a few scenes where he was not given a script for a scene, and basically they're like, make Scarlett Johansson laugh. And then he just started rambling, and I think there was like the scene where they're in the sushi restaurant. And it's like, generally, I think he was just kind of confused in real life about what was going on there. So, yeah, and like whenever he ad-libs, I mean, it's like he's a natural, so it works out.
I was just so jealous of him for that movie. It's just
I've never seen that. That's the one that has the famous the line that you don't hear, right?
Yeah.
I've got to check that out, but stuff like that annoys me. It's like, I want to know what he said, and no one's ever going to say it. And the actors won't ever say it because it probably really said nothing. He probably said, "I'll see you for dinner later on."
I thought the line is actually in the script. I saw an interview with Sofia Coppola about that, and she said that there is an actual line, but she pulled back on the volume, I guess.
Oh, okay.
Is what it was, or she did something to make sure you couldn't hear it. But I don't know. Either way, it's a good movie. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, it's like one of my like favorite movies too. Like with that too, it's like the whole sense of like being surrounded by people, but also kind of feeling alone. And yeah, it's like the Coppolas have awesome movies, and they've involved Bill Murray a few times.
Yeah. What was the one he did shortly after that, where he goes to visit with all his ex-girlfriends, thinking that he's got a kid? I can't remember.
Oh, Broken Flowers.
There you go. That's it. Yeah, that was pretty interesting too. It's
didn't see that either.
Unlike St. Vincent, where I can recommend that to just about everybody, Broken Flowers is a little bit more difficult. You have to pick and choose who you're going to say, go watch that one, you'll like it. It's unusual.
And it also ends open-ended too, so it's like you never find out if the kid is his or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's a cliffhanger.
It's good though. It's got that similar Lost in Translation feel to it. It's kind of a trope that they're doing at this point.
He's apparently got a phone message system set up for scripts and directors. And I was watching an interview with him on like CBS this morning, not too long ago. And he basically said that Wes Anderson just has to call him and verify that he's available, and he'll do whatever for him. But the one that I thought was really funny was that he said he got a message from a Joel Cohen saying that I want you to read a script for my movie, and he, without reading the script or talking to his agent, agreed to it and signed the contract. And it wasn't Joel Cohen, it was Joel Cohen, and that was the two Garfield movies.
Oh, really?
He said he signed on to those sight unseen, thinking it was, he didn't even know it was Garfield the cat. He just thought it was a Coen Brothers movie. He said, I didn't bother reading the script because I trust in them, and I don't know if he'd ever worked with them. So he's like, I was very excited to work with them. And he goes, and then I ended up being a cartoon cat. And that line in Zombieland was, I think, a ad-lib, where he says, what do you regret, Garfield? I think that's hilarious. That this guy doesn't even, he doesn't even bother reading. He just answers yes, and then he ends up in not one, but two terrible movies.
And one was Garfield, A Tale of Two Kitties. I mean,
yeah,
that's painful.
Well, at that point, he must have signed the contract saying you'll do this at least twice.
Yeah. And now, but could you imagine anybody else being the voice of Garfield?
In all honesty, other than the fact that he doesn't like it, and I mean, I did see the first one, and it wasn't a good movie. If you're gonna go away from Lorenzo music, then Bill Murray is to me the obvious choice. He sounds like what I think Garfield should sound like.
Yes. Absolutely.
That
or Christopher Walken would have made a great Garfield.
Oh yeah.
But that's neither here nor there.
I see Christopher Walken more as normal. I think he's more of a normal voice.
Oh God.
Oh.
That's going to end up in the podcast. Christopher Walken as Garfield.
Mondays.
Monday.
More lasagna, please.
Only on WESU.
That's right.
Only on Pint of Comics.
That's right. So Ezra, what is next for you, man? I mean, you've got you're holding off right now on the art shows, trying to figure that out. You have the book out right now, but are you moving on? Is there someone else out there that you're going to? Is this going to be? Oh, he said, "Oh yeah." Is this going to be?
It's Eddie Murphy.
Is this going to be an ongoing series? Because that's. I mean, we love Murray, but there's a lot of. We just said Christopher Walken. My God, Christopher Walken is on his own stratosphere of existence. So what is the plan?
Well, the next one, I'm really trying to I'm trying to push the publisher to bite on it, and I'm really hoping they go for it. Is Jeff Goldblum?
Oh yeah,
Jeff Goldblum is a awesome dynamite lunatic of fashion and just kindness and amazement. And I've already gotten a mountain of art pouring in from killer artists from all over the planet, and I just need a little more like work, and then like I'll have like almost a finished package. But yeah, he's been in a million movies. And,
oh man, you got to send us your submission address, because we got some artist friends that we would love to just send some stuff into you.
Oh man, yeah. Yeah, I always make the emails for submissions really easy. It's jeffgoldblumart@gmail.com.
There you go.
You hear that, artist?
There you go. Get on it right now. Anybody that's a baker, we need some Jeff Goldblum cakes.
Oh man, and I wanted to include like fashion tips and food tips, because he takes really good care of himself and he dresses sharp as a razor. And I think it should be kind of like almost like a little style how-to guide too. But like I wish I could dress like him, but yeah.
I was driving to work last week. I was listening to NPR on the way into work.
Ooh, we don't talk about NPR
because I'm over 40, and I realized once I hit over 40, I started listening to NPR a lot. It's almost like a switch got turned on. But Jeff Goldblum has a jazz album out right now.
He kills it on the piano. He's
a great jazz pianist. He has, I think, a residency at a bar or a restaurant, I think in San Francisco, maybe they said. He plays every Thursday night or something.
Yeah, I think it's in Los Angeles.
Okay, Los Angeles. And then he put an album out, and he has like all these friends of his. Sarah Silverman, I guess, sings a song on it. I guess she's done some jazz stuff. But they just talk to him about that. They don't talk to him about movies or anything. And I was like, wow, this guy is so multifaceted.
Yeah, no, and he's really tall too. I've seen him from a short distance away, and he's a towering man. But that's the thing about him, though. He's really interesting. I mean, he's got this like really unique look and vibe to him. And do you ever watch the show Hot Ones on YouTube?
Not me.
Oh yeah, with where they eat the wings, correct?
Yeah, where they eat incrementally hotter chicken wings in an interview show. And he was on an episode of that, and I love that show. And by the time he got to like the third to the last chicken wing, which is just blazingly hot, I mean, he was just out of his mind with the capsaicin running through him. It was just really interesting to watch Jeff Goldblum unhinged, and I was like, this needs to be an art book.
Yeah, that show actually is very good.
That's your title right there, is Jeff Goldblum unhinged.
There's a lot of celebrities that cannot handle hot wings.
No.
I think we've brought that show up at least twice in the last couple of weeks.
I don't have cable. I only have I watch a lot of Hulu and stuff like that, and I watch a lot of YouTube, and it's Sean Evans, I think is the host name, and it's a whole website basically and a whole channel. But the Hot Ones and he does a lot of stuff where where they go out and celebrity chefs and they cook stuff and stuff like that. But the Hot Ones is just they interview celebrities and then they eat. I think it's 10 different wings, going from like nothing on it to I think their patented 17 alarm. Your face is gone. Raiders of the Lost Ark candle wax face.
Well, and the magic of that show is too, once they start eating those hot foods, all like the pretension from like, their celebrity just melts away. I mean, no matter how rich and powerful you are, like you can eat these wings and then you'll really speak what you feel. And that's fun to see.
Yeah, there was one in particular, I'm trying to remember who it was, and it was like an in-shape person too, but I thought they were going to have a heart attack. They were like, they're using a towel and they're stopping and they're having a hard time going on. And I'm like, wow, this guy is going to die on this show.
It's really entertaining.
Key and Peele had a really hard time. Both of them. They got like halfway through and they're like already sweating everywhere.
And I'm imagining Bill Murray, if he were on that show, like I would love to see that. But if he just got through him and was just kind of like, this is good.
Yeah.
No big thing.
I could see him finishing one and be like, that's enough. I'm good.
And he just walks away, just leaves, and that's it.
So that is a good idea, though, the Jeff Goldblum thing. So does that give you an idea as this being a series, or is it something you would just want to do with a couple and then move on to other stuff?
I would like there to be a series, like with celebrity pop art. Me and my wife kind of helps me with a lot of the input, and we kind of want things that are like universally like acceptable to people. We want something that everybody can kind of get behind. It's like we wanted to actually we were thinking about a Christopher Walken book, and then it was kind of like, but he hasn't been in any really like big movies in the past 5 or 6 years or 10 years, and like that might miss the mark. We kind of shoot for something that like hit right in the middle for everybody, something everybody can kind of enjoy. I mean, like when you meet people that just don't really know Bill Murray movies, but then you say Space Jam, and they're like, well, Space Jam, absolutely, I know Bill Murray, and like. It's like we kind of shoot for something that is like just universally beloved.
I was gonna ask if you're aiming strictly at people that are still living and are still producing material. So
it usually ends up in that direction, but not necessarily.
Well, I've got a whole list. I can think
of.
Yeah,
well, that's why I asked that. Most of the people I know are dead.
I mean, honestly, even though he hasn't had a movie, well, at least something that was bigger in the last couple of years, man, Nicolas Cage totally lends himself to this.
Oh,
yeah.
The very first art show me and my wife ever did was a Nicolas Cage art show, and we did it at this. It was a Latin cowboy bar in San Francisco. It was a good venue, and we ended up like there was a line almost 2 or 3 miles long to get into this show. And the day before, he was on Jimmy Fallon and said my name and talked about the art show. And they were
really?
Kind of like, they're like, "Oh, what's up with you and the internet?" And he was like, "Oh, I don't know, man. It's always really weird." And then they brought up my art show in San Francisco. And I don't know if you've ever had 10,000 notifications on your phone, but it was just like, oh, man. And, yeah, the place was packed to the gills the entire night. Some of my best friends didn't even get into the show.
Wow.
But people from all over the world sent me Nicolas Cage artwork, and we hung up every single piece we got, and we sold more than half the art there, and people have huge Nicolas Cage paintings in their house now, and I have a few left over from the show, and it's like, it's weird as fun.
That's another thing. I mean, with the way that the artists are, you're not looking at the same sized piece every time. How big of a piece have you ever accepted?
The largest piece we had, I think it was the first Bill Murray show in San Francisco. We had a piece that was probably about 15 feet high by 30 feet high. These guys, they rolled in a canvas that looked like a rolled up rug, and they had to get like extension ladders, and they tacked it to the main wall right behind the stage at this place called Public Works in San Francisco. And I mean, it was the backdrop for the show. And I mean, it was enormous. We've had like ones that are like 2 by 2, like little tiny postage stamps of Bill Murray and his various characters addressed to the cities that his character was supposed to be in, like like a little Carl Spackler stamp, addressed to Bushwood, and it's like I mean, so it's all across the board.
Huh. That's always interesting to me because we used to have a museum up in Massachusetts called the Words and Pictures Museum. It was a comic themed gallery of all kinds of artwork, and it's all comic related stuff. But you'd get the cover art for some of these more intricate things, and they'd be the size of a wall, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, these guys would do these multimedia pieces and do photographs of it, and then that would be the cover. But the original piece would be huge. So I had the feeling that some of these artists were sending you big pieces.
Some of them would come in enormous boxes, and like I was touching on, like our FedEx guy hating us. I mean, he would deliver like like a 6 foot wide box sometimes, and then we'd hear broken glass in it too, and we'd be like, "Oh, you didn't? Oh no!" But it always worked out.
That's always a heart-wrenching sound, that broken glass in a box.
Oh yeah.
You must just. I mean, knowing now that you've done this multiple times, not just for the book, your house must just be like Bill Murray and Nicolas Cage are everywhere.
At one point it was, and my wife was getting. We had a portrait of him right over our mantle, and my wife was getting a little creeped out because it was like his eyes were following you at one point, and then she was like, "We have to replace it with something else." So you can only handle so much Cage. But yeah, we have Bill Murray artwork all over our house right now, and we have like little tiny pieces here and there and stuff, in the bathroom and in the kitchen, and it's nice. It's almost uplifting.
Did you preserve the cakes, or did you end up eating those?
No, those were, I think those were done for a wedding by a lady named Avalon Yarns, and yeah, I think they ate them right after they were brought. Yeah, no, they looked really good though.
That's just interesting, food-based artwork.
Yeah, really.
Cool. Well, yeah, and there's one in there too, done by a lady named Angie who crochets everything, and she just ties knots together and makes amazing pieces, and it just blows the mind how much work goes into it. She's like a spider, but and she's done a Jeff Goldblum for me too, and it's the Chive has featured her Bill Murray one that she did that's in the book here, and it's like the amount of dedication that goes into it. It's just like it's out of this world.
On the one hand, a crocheted Bill Murray. On the other hand, a crocheted Jeff Goldblum. Your choice.
You must get a lot of stuff too that like you see it and you know you're going to put it in the book or put it like in the show, but realize that like this is coming home with me no matter what, right? There's got to be certain pieces that you're like, this is not. I'm not selling this. This is not. This is coming home with me.
Yes, mine, precious. Yeah, we've had some really good ones too, where people have just like been like, I'm leaving it here, and they just ditch it, and we're just like, this is amazing.
Oh,
you never know.
There's stuff in the book. I look at it. I'm like, I want that. That should be reproduced. Is anything like that going to happen?
You know what? We've actually had a lot of people email me and ask who how they could get in contact with the artist. And we tried to include as many people's Instagrams and emails in the back of the book. Just, because we wanted to support artists with this. We don't want it just to be like a one-sided thing. And
right.
I think a few of the people have been contacted from fans out there, and we hope that's the case.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah.
It's like it's a community effort, just like
absolutely,
just like this ridiculous radio show.
Yeah.
Well, when you put your heads together, a plan can really work out. And also, I want to give props to the co-writer of the book, Jennifer Reiser. She found a lot of the fun facts and contributed a ton to the literary content of the book. And she put a bulk of the good stuff in here too. It's a real team effort.
And that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So, before we're out of here, because we're running out to the end of the hour.
Last couple minutes.
Man. Let's get from you, Ezra, everywhere people could find you, where the book is, the publisher, you name it. Put it all out there.
All right. Well, I'm Ezra Croft. I'm on Facebook. I'm Crazy Ezra on Instagram. Follow my Instagram. I always try to keep it interesting. I have a lot of Bill Murray stuff there. You can get The Art of Being Bill at any Barnes & Noble in America. You can also find The Art of Being Bill, The Many Faces of Awesome on Amazon. It's going to make a dynamite Christmas gift for anybody that is a Bill Murray lover in your family or your life. You can get the book all throughout Europe at Books A Million and a few different booksellers there. Just Google the book; it's out there, and it'll add richness and treasury to your life.
It's a very very
that.
nice book. It's really well put together. It's a great package. The cover is wonderful.
Yeah,
the quality
it's awesome.
of it is great. Yeah, I could say everything that Ezra just said is exactly what you want to do. You want to do what he said.
I triple down
because I can't say it.
I triple down. I've seen the book. I've read the book, and it's fantastic. And if you're a Bill Murray fan, it is doubly fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. Ezra, it's been great having you on. This has been fun. All Bill Murray, all hour.
Oh, guys, it's been a blast on this side too. Dynamite.
Awesome. Glad to have you on. Thanks again. We'll be in contact.
All right. Excellent.
Thank you, Ezra.
No problem.
All right, WESU coming up next is Uncle John and Dead Air, episode 1246, the world's greatest and most dangerous live Grateful Dead show of all time. Stay tuned next week to Pint of Comics. This time next week, John and I will have Curtis Spieler on. Curtis is the director of a film called The Devil's Well, which was made in Connecticut. It is available currently on Amazon Prime, so if you want to do a little pre-homework and check out who we're talking to next week, go, and if you have an Amazon Prime account, go check out The Devil's Well. And it's scary, so if you're not into that, be careful. There's some scary stuff in it.
Scary for Christmas.
Yeah, scare yourself to death for Christmas. So this has been Sir John and Johnny Ganache, Pint of Comics. We will see you later.
See ya.